Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. Around 5:30 p.m. on Sunday, Beverly walked through the front door. She dropped her purse and keys on the nightstand and headed down the hallway to the master bedroom. I'm not sure if she saw me sitting in the office, but it didn't matter. Over the past few years, I've become almost invisible to her. I went over and took her bunch of keys. I took out her spare keys to my Toyota and then opened her purse. I took out her cell phone and wallet. I took out all the cash and credit cards from my wallet and put all the loot in my pocket. Just in case, I took her driver's license. Then I returned to my seat in the office. 15 minutes later, Bev returned to the hall, beautifully dressed. When she saw me, when she slung the strap of her purse over her shoulder and grabbed the keys, she said, "I'm going to meet the girls from work. Don't wait for me." "No, you're not going to date girls from work," I said. "Jack, you should know by now that you don't control me. I will do whatever I please." "I didn't say that you can't date girls from work. I said you're not going to date girls from work. You're going to go use your boyfriend, so don't lie to me anymore." Beverly stood in silence for a few seconds. Then she boldly entered the office and stood in front of me, presenting her ultimatum. "Okay, Jack, so you know. I'd rather do it another way, but we might as well end it now. Jack, you have two options. You can save what's left of this marriage by accepting some freedom from me, or you can choose for me to divorce you and cut you out of my life. What will you choose?" I choose door number 3, I replied with a grin. "Don't be a child. There is no door. No 3. Either accept that I now have a lover, a real man for a change, or prepare for the consequences. And I really mean your suffering." I got up, walked over to Bev, grabbed her by the shoulders and pushed her against the wall. I took off her wedding and wedding rings from her left hand. With my lips inches from her face and a dead look in my eyes, I furiously whispered to her, "Oh, there's door number 3. Take a look. It's right over there. This is my front door, and when you walk out of it, it will be the last time. You leave with your clothes on your back and never cross the threshold again. You won't get another cent of my money. Eventually, you will lose your husband, your daughter, your house, your money, your car, and your job." "You're living in a fantasy world, Jack," she murmured nervously. "My lawyer will tear you to pieces. I'll send you the divorce papers to work tomorrow. If you hurt me, you will suffer much more than me." I lifted her shoulders off the wall and frog-marched her to the front door while she stumbled in high heels. She was screaming incoherently when I pushed her out the door. Bev could barely keep her balance, and her composure was completely gone. Throughout our marriage, I never raised my hand to her, and she didn't know how to react. Standing in the yard in front of the house, she began to come to her senses, and at that moment I closed the door and locked the lock, which I had already replaced this afternoon. When Bev was leaving, I made the first of 2 calls. I dialed my 19-year-old daughter's number at college. "Honey, it's Dad. The relationship with your mother has finally reached its peak. She's probably going to live with her boyfriend, and I wanted to talk to you first. I want you to know that I have recorded our last conversation with your mother, along with hours and hours of previous arguments. They're available for you to listen to, so please remember that you have access to the truth when she tries to twist everything and blame me. And she will try to do it. Honey, the truth is that your mother is an adulteress. I do not know how many times she has been with other men, but this time she has found someone for whom she is ready to leave our family. As I'll explain to you soon, this probably means that her boyfriend is a pretty dangerous person, so be very careful in your relationship with your mother." Next, I asked Patty if she could come home for the weekend so we could talk and she could listen to the recordings if she wanted. Patty agreed to come home on Friday. My next call was to Martha, our neighbor at the end of the block. Martha was a widow. She was about 30 years old. "Martha, this is Jack. If the offer is still valid, I would like to take advantage of it. Can you come in an hour or so? I hate long stories of troubled marriages, so I'm going to make this story pretty short. Bev and I met and got married around the age of 20, and we had a daughter, Patty. Everything was fine for a couple of years, but the feelings seemed to pass pretty quickly for Bev. As events unfolded, she became grumpier and grumpier. She turned into a squabbler, manipulator, and overseer. I tried my best to keep my mouth shut and make her feel better, but it seemed like the more I tried, the worse it got. Indeed, I now believe that I have contributed to my own suffering by trying to calm Bev down all these years. Now I regret that I did not act differently and did not take control of her and the situation from the very beginning. So now, in our early 40s, everything has gone completely awry. When I suspected Bev and did a little investigation, I found out about her boyfriend pretty quickly, and the results were amazing. She contacted an ex-convict with a reputation for raping women. I don't think Bev knew about this initially, but her lover had at least 2 other women on the hook when Bev showed up. This guy's name is Sylvester, and he is, of course, known as Sly. I was amazed when I found out about him, but in a way it also made sense to me. So when I found out that our marriage was really over, I was overwhelmed with great relief and I started planning. I've read stories where an offended husband takes half the money. Not me. I took all the damn pennies I could get, including all the cash I could find in the house. I changed the locks, of course, and I had plans to piss off Bev as much as possible. You see, my marriage taught me a lot about how she reacts, and I planned to use her temper against her. She was a dangerous woman in many ways, but this time she would be dangerous to herself too. In fact, my planning started long before I found out about her lover, and the end came. For several years, I recorded us whenever we had a fight. She thought the device I always carried with me was a simple MP3 player, but in fact I was creating a library of her antics to document. I knew that no one would believe my stories unless I had proof, since she only bullied me in this way when we were alone. Next to other people, including our daughter, she was sweet as a pie. I wanted to be able to tell everyone about her, including all my friends and family. On the Monday after our Sunday skirmish, I threw a party in the company's break room. A large poster hung above my head with the inscription, "Happy Divorce." I had a cake and ice cream ready, and I was looking forward to the arrival of the technology server. I was lucky that it turned out to be a chubby girl doing dirty work. A lot of photos were taken when my colleagues and I celebrated the presentation of the divorce papers. I took a picture taking the papers and kissing the server girl on the cheek. At that time, she was wearing a festive pointed hat. In another photo, I put a fork with a cake in her mouth and we both smile. When the party was over, I emailed pictures of Bev. Along with the photos from the party, I sent a couple of photos of myself and Martha, my neighbor, in my bed with the sheets pulled up to our necks and wide smiles on our faces. I was hoping Bev would notice her wedding rings on Martha's left hand resting on my chest. An hour later, I received an angry call. "You bastard. My lawyer will eat you for lunch after these photos. What a dumb ass you are." "I don't think so, Bev. There is nothing obscene or compromising in these shots. No nudity. Just 2 neighbors decided to fool around. Just funny pictures, that's all. We'll look at it later. Jack, I'm going to come home tonight to pick up some of my stuff. I think it would be better if you weren't there. If I'm not there, you won't be able to enter. All locks have been replaced. If you need anything, you should be there well before 6:45. Martha and I have a date at 7 p.m., and I sure as hell don't want to be late. Although I haven't answered all her calls since, I've listened to all her messages, unlike other guys I've read about in similar circumstances. There was a good chance that Bev would say something incriminating or accidentally give away a secret when he called in anger. In fact, she did give herself away several times in the coming weeks. At 4:30 that afternoon, I drove to the parking lot at Bev's place of work. I wanted to get there before people started going home. I made sure there were no security cameras in the parking lot, and what I had to do would take less than a minute. I pulled up next to Bev's car and, going around her, cut off the valve rods on all her tires with pliers. Oh yeah, she's definitely going to get mad. Besides, she would never fix them in time to get home before 6:45. But it was about 6:35 when she showed up. Obviously, she was taking a ride with someone, so I knew she was desperate to get into the house. After all, I saw receipts for the clothes she bought, which I knew she hadn't brought home, so she must have had a lot of clothes at her lover's house. She must want something else. I slipped out the back door and hurried to Martha's house, leaving Bev banging on the front door and screaming. When I returned that evening, my front door window was smashed and there was blood all around it. After reviewing the surveillance footage from the front porch, I called the police. The video showed Bev hitting the window with a tire iron, apparently taken from her friend's car. I could clearly hear her threatening to kill me when she broke the glass and climbed inside. Unfortunately for her, the lock I installed was the kind that requires a key on both sides to open. When she pulled her hand back out, she cut her forearm quite badly, which caused another round of screams and threats from her side. I immediately reported the incident to the police, and one of the officers kindly guided me through the process of applying for protection. The next morning, Bev was handed papers forbidding her to come within 500 feet of me or our house. To say that she was angry would be an understatement. "What the hell are you doing, asshole?" That's how her next phone call began. She was furious and threatened me again. I recorded the entire conversation. A few hours later, having calmed down a bit, she called again. She said she would send her friend Lindsay to pick up some of her things that evening. What does she so desperately want from home? I thought. So I agreed to see Lindsay at 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday. I left work a little early to install a video camera in my bedroom with a monitor in my office. Lindsay arrived on time, and I was very cordial. I sat on the bed while she put some clothes in 2 black plastic garbage bags. Lindsay looked at me nervously, and then asked if I would bring her some water from the kitchen. I smiled and left. As soon as I looked at the monitor, I saw Lindsay pull a shoebox out of the closet into the bag closest to her. Then she went back to choosing clothes. I quickly grabbed a glass of water from the kitchen and returned to the bedroom. "I think that's enough," she said. "Could you take this package and I'll take that one?" "Oh, this one looks heavier, Lindsay. Let me take it." No, I'm fine. Just take another one, okay?" "Is there anything in this package that I should know about, Lindsay?" I asked when she started fidgeting and dragging her bag to the door. I took her wrist and opened the package. "It's just clothes and things that Bev needs," she said anxiously. "You're a bad liar, Lynn. What's in this box that I feel here? Do you want to tell me about it?" I pulled out a shoebox and opened it. The box was filled with bundles of $50 and $100 bills, all of them looking battered. "Lindsay, you're trying to steal from me." I stood up and pulled her by the hand behind her back, leading her to the door and down the hall. "Jack, it's Bev's money. She sent me here to pick him up. I'm not stealing anything." "Well, you came to my house to get clothes, and I found you coming out with a box of money. I call it stealing. I don't see Beverly's name on this box. You're a thief, Lindsay. I'm going to call the police. Right now. Get ready to be arrested for robbery." "No, Jack, don't do this. I can't go to jail. I have children and a husband, for God's sake." I sat Lindsay down on the couch and looked her straight in the face. "Lindsay, you will never be welcome in this house again. I thought you were my friend, but now I know you're a thief." She kept begging me and started crying. "If you want to redeem yourself, you have one chance. You're going to leave this house and tell Bev that I caught you stealing. Then you will report to me about everything you hear or see, especially anything related to our divorce or her relationship with Sly. You won't tell her anything about our arrangement. Bev made a really bad decision by getting involved with this loser, and you'll eventually help her get away from him if you cooperate with me. And Lindsay, I have the whole episode on video, and I can call the police and file a report on you at any time." Lindsay reluctantly agreed to be my mole. As soon as she left, I took the box with the money and went to Martha's house at the end of the block. She agreed to hide it for me until I could safely hide it where Bev would never be able to find it. I knew where the money most likely came from. Bev's Aunt Mabel was a notorious miser, and when she died a few months ago, Bev was her sole heir. I knew that her aunt had left her a small hut in the countryside, but nothing was ever said about money. Apparently, when Bev was inspecting the cabin after the reading of the will, she found her aunt's money stashed there. When my wife called and screamed, I recorded the conversation, but I was careful what I said. "This money is mine, Jack. I want my damn money." "Bev, I don't know what you're talking about." I caught Lindsay trying to steal money from my bedside table. "This is my money." "You know damn well what I'm talking about. The money is in the shoebox and it's mine. It's from Aunt Mabel. I inherited them." Well, maybe Lindsay did find some money in a shoebox, but if she did, she must have taken them with her and kept them for herself. I don't have any. Maybe Lindsay stole from you. And if you had any money here that I didn't know about, then you didn't report it when paying your taxes last year. I am aware of this because I have read and signed tax returns. You can call the police to investigate, and then we will inform the tax service about this money and let them decide what to do with your tax evasion. She hung up the phone. There had to be some kind of revenge. I knew that. I pushed Bev's buttons too hard for her to be gone. She couldn't let herself be caught outside the house because of a restraining order. Since I started by messing up her car, I thought she might try to get back at me through my car. So I had a camera mounted on the dashboard, but it wasn't enough. I wanted to take good pictures of how she would do her job if she decided to go down this path. So when I parked in front of the garage on Wednesday morning, I set up a camera outside the house, hidden from prying eyes. This camera was transmitting a video that I could watch at my desk. An hour before lunch, I watched on my laptop as Bev parked her car behind mine, got out and started banging on my car with a hammer. She broke all the windows and dented every wing. I winced a little when the camera caught her smashing the windshield and shouting, "That's how I'm going to hit you on the head." I dialed 911, and a police car was waiting for her as she pulled out of the driveway. When I showed them the video and my wrecked Toyota, they handcuffed Bev and took her to jail. It was obvious that she had caused enough harm to qualify it as a criminal offense. The charge of resisting arrest was gravy. She turned to look at me with a pleading look as she was led away, but I just stared at her in silence. Bev's divorce lawyer called me on Wednesday to inform me that there would be a hearing in court regarding access to the money I had withdrawn from our joint accounts. It was scheduled for Thursday at 10 a.m. I was in the courtroom at 9:50, wondering if Bev had posted bail. She arrived with her lawyer just in time with a smug expression on her face. Bev's lawyer turned to the judge. "Your Honor, my client was cut off from the bank accounts she shared with her husband. He illegally took all the money after she filed for divorce. At the moment, we are asking the court to divide 50-50. Mr. Reynolds, is there anything you want to say?" "Yes, Your Honor. My unfaithful wife has enough of her own funds, which she has been withdrawing from our joint accounts for months. The money I withdrew was a reasonable compensation, as I am responsible for paying the housing and bills. She abandoned our marriage and moved in with the man she was cheating on me with." Bev stood up. "That's a lie. He took all the money from our savings and checks. He didn't leave me a dime. I don't have anything." Bev's lawyer took her hand and sat her back down. They had a small conference while I handed over the documents to the judge. "Your Honor, these are the bank statements for last year. You will notice that amounts up to a few months ago, including Bev's salary, are highlighted in yellow. In addition, there are periodic bonuses highlighted in orange. Then, about 6 months ago, her checks stopped being credited to the joint account, and her bonuses also disappeared. I have a recording of my conversation with her HR department if you want to hear it, which confirms that her direct deposit has been changed to her personal account. The total amount transferred from our joint account is in the thousands of dollars, Your Honor. It is quite obvious that my unfaithful wife has enough funds, and they are all stolen from our marriage." The judge looked at the bank statements and then looked over the top of his glasses at Beverly. "Do you have anything to say about this, Miss Reynolds?" Bev's lawyer slowly stood up and spoke. "Your Honor, the fact that my client may have her own funds does not absolve Mr. Reynolds from the responsibility to give her her share. Well, counselor, I don't like being lied to. Miss Reynolds claimed she was a beggar, which I found out was nonsense when she walked in here with an expensive guy like you in tow. Now we see that she is sufficiently funded by money that should have been public property, and she tried to deceive both her husband and the court about this. Since Mr. Reynolds pays the bills with his own funds, I see no reason to change any financial arrangements at this time. When the divorce agreement is finalized, the property will be declared and divided accordingly. The case is closed." Bev caught me in the hallway as I was leaving. I started writing it down while she was talking. "I'm going to get you, you bastard. I'm going to tear you to pieces. Bev, you shouldn't be within 500 feet of me. I'll call the police if you don't move. By the way, how did you like prison? Are you ready to spend a lot more time there? You've been charged with a felony." I could have said that she wanted to swing at me, but I just kept moving down the hall to the door, and she stood there with her fist clenched, her face distorted and red. That evening, I went to a local bar. Not my usual hangout, but it was a place where I met an interesting guy a month earlier. The reason this guy was interesting was because he had a crappy car. Fortunately, Zeke was there on his usual bar stool. "Hey dude, I remember you. What's your name again?" "It doesn't matter, Zeke. Hey, do you still have that shitty car?" "Oh my God, yes, I hate this thing. The wife took a good one when she ran off with that scumbag in a suit. The air conditioner in the car is broken, and I'm dying in this heat. I don't have money for a new car, and this is the only way I can get around. She took all the money, and I have bad credit. Do you have paid car insurance? If you do what I tell you, I might be able to help you buy something better." "I'm all ears, bro." "Let's say you're driving down, say, 38th Street, and a gray cat suddenly runs out in front of you. Naturally, you're hitting the brakes, and maybe the lady following you will crash too close into the back of your shitty car. At a speed of more than 15 miles per hour, your car will be completely wrecked. If your head is pressed against the headrest and you're wearing a seatbelt, you'll be fine. Insurance will cover your losses, and you could at least buy an air-conditioned car." "Yes, but what if the lady who hit me gets hurt? I can't do that to a poor woman." Well, I can guarantee you that this lady will be a cheating wife, and there will be no one else in the car if you follow my instructions. What would you say to that? Oh man, that would be great. I hate cheating bitches, and I definitely need to get rid of this car. Park at 38th and Lessing by 5 p.m. tomorrow. Look to the left, and when you see the blue Miata leaving the parking lot and heading in your direction, you can drive out in front of it. She doesn't like to overtake other cars, so drive a block or so until she's on your tail. Then you'll kind of see a cat running across the road, so get ready and hit the brakes hard. Just stay in the car afterwards. Dial 911 and tell the guys from the ambulance that you think you might have a neck injury. And by the way, I've never met you. I'll never be in this bar again, and we don't know each other. Dude, I'm a grave. Not as cold as the air conditioner in your new car will be. I left work early on Friday to meet my daughter at home. She finished her classes and came home, as we agreed on Sunday evening. We talked a bit about the divorce situation, and I played her a recording of my conversation with her mother about door number 3. Patty was shocked to hear her mother's ruthless tone and her demands. Then I played Patty a selection of recordings that I had made over the previous 2 years, and she heard a side of Bev that she didn't even know existed. What do you know about this guy she's with, Dad? I know he's a very bad person, and I want you to stay away from him. If you need to meet your mom, make sure you're in a public place where there are people. I do not know what he can do to you to try to get to me. In any case, always have something to protect yourself if there is even the slightest chance that he might be around. Dad, I knew that you and Mom had some problems, but I never realized how bad it was. What the hell happened to you guys? It was a question I was ready for, and I launched into a long monologue explaining my view of things. Here is a slightly shorter version. Patty, as far as I understand now, your mother and I had completely different ideas about how a marriage should be arranged. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I have a theory. Someone has probably already thought about what I'm going to explain to you and written it all down in a book, but this idea came to my mind on my own. There are 4 main ways to allocate authority in a relationship. There is a case when neither side takes control into its own hands, and in this case, everything just drifts like a ship without a rudder. It may also happen that both partners will take responsibility. In this case, perhaps they are constantly fighting over who is in charge, or maybe they share things so that each person controls some aspects of the relationship. Maybe they are even able to share the responsibility equally. That's how I entered into a relationship, expecting it to be like this. It didn't turn out that way at all. Another way this can happen is that the man is in charge. This method can work under certain conditions. I know that nowadays we find paternalistic relationships insulting and humiliating for women. But if a man is completely devoted to his wife, it can be like Snow White and Prince Charming. It can be a fabulous life for a wife with the right temperament. She will live without worrying about making difficult decisions, confident that her man will always take care of her. Or it might be like your maternal grandparents. Did you know that Grandma was always meek as a mouse, and your grandfather was domineering and sometimes cruel? This is what your mom saw when she was growing up, and I think now this is what she expected in our relationship. So when I tried to share the first place with her, she started to think I was weak. The more I pleased her, the more she disrespected me. This brings me to the last possibility, a wife-dominated relationship. I think your mom decided to be the boss when I couldn't live up to her image of a good person. She began to abuse me. She decided which projects would be completed, and it was best that they be completed to her satisfaction. I can't tell you how many times she started some family business and then stood there and dictated exactly how I should do it. That's about the same as the cases that were never completed because I couldn't stand being made to feel insulted by my husband in my own home. She literally told me how I needed to hold a hammer or a screwdriver when I was building or fixing something. It was absolutely unbearable. You see, when the wife dominates, in most cases there is something that goes against human nature. I don't understand how this type of relationship can work. A husband can be dominant and maintain love and affection for his wife, but a wife loses respect for any man she dominates. I think that's exactly what's happening to us. When I started to understand how things were and started to resist, Beverly didn't think I was taking responsibility. By that time, she already considered me a weakling, and when I refused to let her boss me around, she just saw me as a rebellious child. I will never be able to regain her respect. I think this divorce is my last chance to win her respect, so you'll understand my actions when you see how hard it is for me to prove to her that I'm intolerant of this lifestyle. Patty, you're going to find someone to be your life partner soon. When you decide things like having children, who to work with, and where to live, think about how you're going to make decisions. Make sure that you and your mate know what to expect, and be sure that there will be mutual respect between you. Otherwise, you will both be unhappy, and you may well end up in the situation that Bev and I found ourselves in. I'll do that, Dad, I promise. A little later, the phone rang. Mr. Reynolds, this is Memorial Hospital. Your wife was in a car accident. She's stable and not too badly injured, but she'll be with us at least for the night. Patty and I drove to the hospital, and I let her enter the room first. Patty didn't stay long, and I asked if I could talk to Bev alone when she came out looking glum. I suspected that Patty had harsh words for her. God, you look like shit, Bev, I said with a slight grin. What a shitty week for you, huh? First of all, you're losing your marriage, your husband, and your home. Then you are handed a restraining order and then arrested for a felony. Then you lose some of the money you were counting on. Now your car is wrecked and you're lying in the hospital with a broken wrist and your face smashed by an airbag. I think this divorce is going much better for me. Fuck you, she replied. Yes, Bev. Where's old Sly? Has he come to visit yet? Don't worry. He's probably using one of his other 2 women right now. She turned pale. You probably didn't know about the others when you started all this, did you? Looks like you know now. I wonder how long it will be before he wants you to serve one of them. I've never thought of you as a pussy eater, but it's probably a good skill to learn, considering how much you'll need it in prison. I'm not going to jail. My lawyer will get these false charges dropped. Really? You kind of crashed my car and threatened my health, because when I talked to the district attorney, he made it clear that he was going to throw you in there. He has photographic evidence and he has an election coming up. Now he wants to look really cool in the fight against crime. I think he will ask for the maximum. She just sat there and looked at me. By the way, which car insurance company did you decide to contact? I asked. Car insurance? What do you mean? We still have the same old one. You mean you didn't buy insurance this week? When you filed for divorce, I excluded your car from insurance. Surely you know about this. I mean, you demanded that only your name be in your Miata, so it's only your responsibility now. Honey, if you didn't get insurance this week, then you're really screwed. You will need to pay a couple of fines, towing costs, and 3 years of payments. You probably won't be able to afford it. And this Miata will be forever standing in the far corner of some dump while you're still paying for it. But you may not need another car, as you will not have a job after you are convicted of a serious crime. Plus, the guy you hit may have medical bills, and his insurance company will demand damages from you. Damn it. But at least you're provided with your own medical care, right? I'm on yours. No, I cut you off my health insurance on Monday. You haven't changed that either? Baby, you screwed up. An ambulance ride, an emergency room visit, x-rays, doctors, a cast on your right arm, hospital stay, follow-up care. It will cost thousands and thousands of dollars. Hey, speaking of medicine, the other day I was thinking about the time when you got sick a couple of years ago. Remember? I took a week off to take care of you. I held your head while you were vomiting, and I cleaned it up when you didn't make it to the bathroom in time. I called the doctor and went to the pharmacy to buy you medicine. When you got better a week later, you started scolding me again, insulting me and calling me different words. I wonder how well old Sly will take care of you next time you get sick. Well, I have to go. Call Sly when you think he's done using his other cheating girlfriend. I wish you a good life. Beverly just sat and cried when I left. I didn't care. After that, everything went on as usual for a while. Nothing special happened. I contacted Lindsay from time to time. She began to worry about Sly's power over Bev, and over time, Lindsay distanced herself from her. Then one evening, when I returned home and was heading to my front door, I was attacked on the lawn. I was pretty careful about possible attacks, but I didn't foresee this happening. The guy in the ski mask knocked the wind out of me and twisted my arm behind my back. He shouted in my ear that I should give him the box of money and tell the district attorney to drop the charges. I was discouraged and I couldn't defend myself. However, I still had the remote control for the car alarm in my hand, so I pressed the alarm button and it went off. Sly got angry and hit me again. Then he jumped up and quickly ran away when the light came on the neighbor's porch and people began to look out. I shouted for them to call 911, and a few minutes later a policeman showed up. I wasn't hurt badly enough for an ambulance ride, and Sly was long gone. None of my neighbors said they could identify him, so he got away with the attack. An even bigger shock happened when I called my daughter and told her about it the next day. Dad, I didn't want to tell you, but I had a run. In with Sly too. Mom called me to talk. I told her we could talk, but away from his apartment. She asked me to pick her up, but when I arrived, she sat me down on their couch. Then Sly came out and talked to me. He said that since Mom wasn't coping well with her injuries in bed, I would have to take care of his needs myself. He said she owed him and that I would pay for her. I looked at my mom and she just looked at the floor and didn't say anything. Sly said, "Tell her to do it." Mom looked at me and said, "Please, baby, stay with him. It's not going to be that bad and I really need you to do this for me." Then he came up to me and grabbed my wrist to force me to stand up. He said we were going to the bedroom. My right hand was on the pepper spray in my purse, and when he dragged me away, I sprayed him in the face. He screamed and grabbed his face, and I grabbed my purse and tried to pull my mom out the door, but she pulled away and walked towards him. I shouted at her to come with me, but she was helping him in the bathroom, so I left. I can't believe my own mom tried to set me up with that bastard. I do not know if I will ever be able to forgive her for this. I was seething, like any father in my place. I thought about my Beretta in the bedroom and almost followed her. After a while, my daughter reassured me, saying that she was not injured, and advised me to think about the future. I made Patty promise not to walk alone until after the trial and to always have protection with me. She said she would only date other students and would never be alone in public, so I gradually pulled myself together. Sly told me to talk to the district attorney, but he didn't expect me to have the conversation I actually had. I played back the recording of my daughter's story about Sly and reminded him that Sly had attacked me. The district attorney asked if I wanted to go easy on Bev or maybe drop the charges. "Absolutely not. I want you to ask for the maximum. Bev is under the control of this snake, and the only way I see to help her is to get her away from him. A few months in prison could put her in order." The district attorney agreed, and the trial continued. I felt pretty confident at home and at work, but there were times when I was vulnerable. When I drove into or out of the garage, I was open to attack. But I was very careful on my way to and from work. Our house is located in an area about 10 miles down the road to the ranch. For 15 miles, this is the only turn off this road. The only other thing there is a row of large ranches with locked gates. So I was very aware of the other problem areas on this long drive home. I carried a Beretta with me all the time. One evening, a few days before Bev's trial was due to begin, I saw the headlights of a pickup truck behind me, about 2 miles down the road to my house, and my skin crawled. Soon he was 20 feet from my rear bumper, doing 55 miles per hour. I dialed 911 on my phone and pressed the record button on my little recorder. When I increased the speed to 70, the pickup truck stayed with me. I gave a cursory comment to the 911 operator, asking her to call the detective who investigated my beating. The pickup maintained the pressure for another 5 miles while I frantically told the operator what was going on. The gun was on the seat next to me, and I took the safety off. I realized that there was a bridge ahead, spanning a small stream bed, with an old-fashioned concrete railing. I guessed that Sly, or whoever was driving the truck, would make his move to push me off the road at this point. 100 yards from the bridge, the pickup accelerated, and I knew he was going to try to push me off the road. I caught a glimpse of Bev's face in the passenger seat of the pickup truck as he drew level with me. I hit the brakes hard enough to throw the car into a skid, but as it turned out, not so hard that I lost control. The truck stopped in front of me, but it missed my front bumper because of my braking. My car skidded along the side of the road and stopped. The back of it ended up on a slope sloping down to the stream bed. I got out, grabbed my gun, phone, and recorder, and headed down the steep gravel slope under the bridge. As I was heading down, I saw the brake lights on the pickup light up. I stumbled in the dark, feeling my way under the bridge. It was a great way to meet a rattlesnake resting on warm ground. But it wasn't the snake I was worried about at the time. I was breathing heavily and trying to find the safest place to hide. Finally, I stopped and cocked the Beretta. I waited, but I didn't hear anything for a while. The mobile phone connection with 911 was interrupted. I tried to dial the number again in the dark, but being under the bridge was not the best place to get a signal. I was stuck, and I had no idea if there was help on the way. At least I didn't hear the truck growling upstairs. I wasn't going to move. I told myself that I would spend the night there if necessary. It seemed to take forever, but it probably took only 5 or 10 minutes before I heard a siren in the distance coming from the same direction as me. If they were that far behind, they would never have caught up with the pickup truck. The police car obviously stopped when they saw my car on the side of the road, and I started walking up the hill, leaving the Beretta under the bridge. I raised my hands and asked them not to shoot. As I approached the road, I saw that there were two cars and they were standing across the road, blocking both lanes of traffic. At about the same time, I heard sirens coming from the other side and saw a pickup truck returning to the bridge. I fell into the mud. I couldn't see much from the ground, but I heard the pickup screech to a stop and the officers shouted at the driver to get out and get down to the ground. Other police cars following the pickup stopped behind him. Soon it was all over. Bev and Snake Sly were in custody on charges of attempted murder. I was very worried, but I went home, took a shower, and tried in vain to fall asleep. When your spouse is accused of multiple criminal offenses, divorce seems to go very easily. I got a lot of sympathy from the judge and no resistance from Bev or her exhausted lawyer. Bev desperately wanted to spend as little time in prison as possible. She offered through her lawyer to give me almost everything in the divorce for any help I could provide in mitigating her sentence. During the sentencing hearing, I testified that she was a good wife and mother until she fell under Sly's influence. I told the judge that in time I could forgive her for trying to kill me. I forgot to mention that she almost certainly cheated on me with other men and made my life hell for years. I couldn't read her expression in the courtroom, and I never spoke to her directly during that time. In the end, Sly went to prison for a long time. This was not his first crime. I sincerely hope that he is in the same cell with a big sweaty man named Bubba, who thinks his ass is sweet as candy. The judge was kinder to Bev, but it will be at least 3 years before she is released on parole. So it's been about 4 years since Bev was put away. I heard from the district attorney's office that she was paroled about a year ago. I've been waiting to hear from her. I know she doesn't talk to Patty. Revenge is great and all that, but not as great as expected. I found that I couldn't help but think about everything that had happened, and so I did something I didn't expect. I called my ex-wife. Bev, this is Jack. I have something of yours and I want it back. I called the rehab center where Bev was currently living. For a few seconds, I didn't know if she had heard me. There was no response. Beverly, I want to give you a shoebox. Do you hear me? Is there somewhere we can meet so I can bring her back? I thought she was going to hang up, but eventually she spoke. Where? When? I don't care. We can meet somewhere neutral, like in a restaurant, or you can come to my house. Whatever you want. Maybe on Sunday. Are you free on Sunday? She was silent for a while longer. I'll be there on Sunday at 2 o'clock. The phone went off. How do you prepare to meet your ex-wife, the mother of your child, the woman who tried to kill you, and a convicted criminal? I made lemonade and cookies. I opened the door for Bev, and neither of us even tried to shake hands, let alone hug. We just said hello, and I motioned her into the office. Her hair was much shorter than before, and her gaze was stern. She wasn't wearing much makeup, if she had any at all. Now she was 50 years old, and she looked all 65. There were drinks, cookies, and a shoebox on the coffee table. She sat down in front of the sofa, and I offered her soft drinks, which she declined. Did she really suspect that I would try to poison her? Well, if you don't want lemonade and cookies, I think the only thing you need is a shoebox and everything we could say to each other. What's the catch, Jack? What do you want in return? Is there anything left in it? She was still very suspicious of me. There's no catch, Bev. Everything is there, except for a few thousand, which I put together with the same amount of my money and gave to Patty when she got married, as a down payment on her house. If you want, she will be happy to start returning this money to you at any time convenient for you. I just gave her my part of the money. I could tell from Bev's face that she didn't know Patty was married. Patty has been married for 2 years, and you are already a grandmother. I could see the tension in her eyes, and I knew she was struggling with her emotions. The little girl's name is Shannon Beverly Evans. Shannon is the name of her other grandmother. Bev's eyes filled with tears despite her best efforts. Bev, I know you haven't talked to Patty in a while. There must be a way for you to reconnect. If you want, I can pave the way for you. Beverly nodded, and now tears were streaming down her cheeks. I reached over to the side table for a box of napkins, which I put on the coffee table. So, I'll tell you a short version of what happened to us if you don't want to leave right now. She wiped the tears from her cheek and tried to pull herself together. Patty found a great guy. His name is Stan Evans. He understands computers and computer networks. They seem to get along really well together. She is a wonderful mom, and they are so devoted to each other. Martha and I only lasted a few months. She's too young for me, and she just needed me temporarily until she could get her life back together. She found another guy and left. I date some people, but I break off relationships if it seems like an emotional attachment is going on. I'd rather be alone. I will remain a bachelor. There was silence for a while. Now I'm going to say some things that are intended solely for my benefit, but you can also get something useful out of them. I hope you will do it. I couldn't wait to see you in prison. I hated you and imagined you dead many times. And then, when they locked you up, my feelings started to change. I found that I couldn't enjoy my victory when it was over. So I stopped hating you. Even though you didn't ask me to, I forgave you. The reason is that I know that you are not 100% to blame. I couldn't understand you until it was too late and we stopped communicating with each other. We were just fighting. Beverly pulled herself together and looked up from the floor. She gave me a lost look but didn't say anything. It really is. Briefly and clearly. If you have nothing to say to me and if you don't want to have a snack, I won't keep you any longer. You probably have important things to do. She stood up and took the box. As she headed for the front door for the first time since I pushed her out years ago, I called out to her. Beverly, it doesn't matter now, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to. But I'm interested. All the time we were together, and especially that last day when you were here, it was obvious that you thought I was a wimp. Do you still think I'm a wimp, Bev? She stopped with her hand on the doorknob and looked back at me. I hate you. You're cruel and you ruined my life. She paused. But I don't think you're weak. And then she disappeared from my life forever.